Welcome to the deep dive.
Uh,
Okay, think about maybe the last really high-stakes chat you had at work. Maybe a negotiation, performance review, or just, one of those difficult conversations.
mhm.
And you walk away and you've got this specific feeling. Maybe you're really irritated or surprisingly sad or just feel sort of helpless.
Right. And we usually just assume, okay, that feeling is a direct response to, the person we were just talking to. Simple cause and effect.
Yeah, seems logical.
But what our sources get into today is this really deep idea. Sometimes that emotion bubbling up inside you, it's like an echo.
That echo.
Yeah, maybe a piece of the other person's past that they're kind of projecting onto you without realizing it. Or maybe it's an old wound of yours that just got poked.
Okay, that's getting complicated fast. This is countertransference,
At
right?
the turn.
Yes. Yeah.
So, yes,
Yeah.
countertransference. And understanding it, well, it's kind of a shortcut if you want to really get a handle on emotional dynamics.
So our mission today for you listening is to cut through all the potential confusion here. We're going to unpack this framework for sorting these feelings into basically three types.
Right. Objective, subjective, and then those feelings that are really unique to the specific relationship you're in right now.
And this is the map, essentially, for figuring out whose emotional story you're actually experiencing in that moment. Is it theirs? Is it yours? Or is it ours? Together.
Exactly. But before we dive into those three, we probably need to quickly touch on transference because that's really what sets the stage.
Good point.
Transference.
It's basically just the tendency we all have to replay old relationship patterns onto new people. Your client or maybe your employee starts treating you like their critical parent or that boss they had who never listened.
Okay, so they're running an old script on me,
Yeah.
unconsciously.
Precisely.
So then countertransference, that's how I, the expert or the manager or whoever, react when someone runs that old script on me. That's the core of it, yes. How you react emotionally. So let's get into those three types. It really helps clarify things. So any feeling you have as the expert or guide and like a deep interaction, it tends to fall into one of these three buckets. And it's all about where the dynamic is coming from.
All right, let's start with what you call the most useful one for diagnosis. Objective countertransference.
Yes.
OCT.
Yes, OCT. These are feelings that specifically mirror or repeat a dynamic from the client's past, not yours.
Oh, yeah.
They're mainly induced, you could say, by the client's transference. They're unconsciously sort of pushing you into feeling what other important people in their life have felt around them.
Huh. Can you give an example?
Sure. Imagine a consultant feels really, really ignored and shut out by a major client, just constantly dismissed.
Okay.
And then later, the consultant finds out this client has a long history of alienating every single advisor they've ever hired. That feeling of being ignored, of being abandoned almost, that's likely OCT.
Because the client made the consultant feel what everyone else feels around them.
Exactly. It's an induction. It's part of the client's story playing out through you.
Wow. Okay, so you're like a sounding board for their history. That's wild. So what about the other side? Subjective countertransference.
Yeah.
SET.
Right. SCT is totally different in where it comes from. These feelings repeat dynamics from your past, the expert's past life,
My stuff.
your stuff,
Yeah.
your personal history, your vulnerabilities. It's not really about the client's specific pattern, although they might trigger it. It's your idiosyncratic reaction.
So let's say I'm a manager and a junior team member says something maybe a little defensive.
Okay.
And suddenly I feel this huge wave of irritation, like way out of proportion.
Yeah.
And it instantly reminds me of this old fight I had with my brother years ago that never really got resolved.
Perfect example. That's SCT. The employee's comment was the trigger, maybe?
Right.
But the intensity, the specific flavor of that irritation, that's coming from your history. It's your vulnerability being touched.
Okay, so OCT is their story playing out of me. SCT is my story getting triggered by them.
You've got it. And importantly, while they often happen at the same time in the room...
Oh, great. Even messier.
Well, yes. But the source material for SCT is purely yours. And it can really cloud your view of what's objectively happening.
Right. Okay, so there was a third category, unique feelings. Where do they fit? They aren't history, you said.
Exactly. These are feelings that feel genuinely new. They're
Yeah.
different from what you usually feel in other relationships, personal or professional.
Yeah.
They're seen as being sort of equally caused by the unique interaction happening right now, the specific chemistry between the two of you in the present.
So not my past, not their past, but our present.
That's a good way to put it. They give you the clearest window into the immediate mutual reality of this particular relationship.
Okay, let's pause there because this sounds neat on paper,
Yeah.
3 distinct buckets,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm already thinking if I feel, say, bored and annoyed in a meeting, how on earth do I figure out if that's objective? Like the client is making me feel the hopelessness that they feel or that they make everyone feel, or if it's subjective, like I just have a really low tolerance for boredom because of my own issues.
That is the absolute core challenge.
How do you pull them apart when they feel the same inside?
And that leads us straight into the tools the sources give us.
Yeah.
Consistency and congruence. That's how you start to untangle it.
Yeah, you've hit the nail on the head. When you're actually feeling these things, helplessness, anxiety, irritation, whatever it is, it doesn't come with a label saying objective
Yeah.
or subjective.
Like,
attached
it
to
just
it.
feels like a feeling.
Exactly. So the first step is just acknowledging, okay, I'm feeling something strong here. I need to pay attention. The real work is figuring out the source.
Okay. And our sources mention 3 qualities to look at for any CT feeling. The specific feeling itself, obviously.
Like, am I feeling hungry or irritated or sad?
Right. And the intensity of it.
Is it mild annoyance or blinding rage? And then this thing called the relational mode, which sounds a bit theoretical.
It's basically asking, what does this feeling push me to do in relation to the other person? Does it make me want to fight or pull away or rescue them? That kind of thing.
Okay. So how do we use those plus consistency to figure out if it's objective?
Right, the test of consistency. This is key for spotting OCT. You need to compare the feeling you're having, its quality, intensity, relational mode, to 2 main things.
What are they?
First, the actual content of your interactions with the person. What are they talking about? What's their history as far as you know it?
Okay. The facts of the situation.
And second, your own feelings about this person over time. Is this feeling part of a pattern in how you react to them? Or is it new? Does it fit with what they're bringing?
So consistency with their story is the big flag for OCT.
Precisely. Let's use that consultant example again. Maybe flesh it out a bit more.
Okay. The consultant with the difficult client, client A.
Right. Client A is nearing a huge decision, maybe about restructuring their company. But they're always late, they dismiss the consultant's advice, yet they demand absolute perfection. Classic, difficult dynamic.
And the consultant feels...
Intensely frustrated. Really, really frustrated. And they notice this urge, this strong wish that they could just make client A stop being so defiant and just listen for once.
Okay. Strong feeling, clear relational push wanting to influence or control.
Then the consultant has a moment of reflection and realizes, wow, this frustration. It feels exactly like how I felt when my ex-partner was being incredibly stubborn during our painful separation years ago.
So, subjective trigger could be SET.
Could be. If that personal history was the only explanation, it would lean towards SET. But here's the consistency test.
Okay.
The consultant also observes client A's behavior and history. They remember client A is constantly talking about how their board tries to tell them what to do, saying things like, nobody pushes me around. They learn that client A has burned through multiple advisors before, always citing defiance as the issue.
So the consultant's feeling that intense frustration and the urge to make them listen actually matches the pattern of how everyone seems to end up feeling around client A.
Exactly. The feeling is consistent with client A's known pattern of evoking defiance and control struggles. Therefore, it's strongly indicative of objective countertransference.
The client basically downloaded that feeling onto the consultant.
That's a great way to put it. The client provided the emotional data by making the consultant feel it directly.
Wow. Okay, that's a powerful aha moment. So that brings us to the other tool, congruence. You said that's key too.
Yes, congruence. Think of it as the degree of agreement or the meaningful connection between your feeling, the CT, and what's actually being talked about, the content. It helps you map the relationship dynamics.
And the sources mentioned a really interesting type, object congruence, where the agreement is found in the opposite. That sounds counterintuitive.
It does, but it's incredibly insightful. Picture a manager meeting with an employee who's going on and on about how successful they are, how competent they are, just boasting.
Okay, lots of positive talk.
But the manager, sitting there listening, feels an overwhelming sense of failure or incompetence, just completely inept.
Which is the total opposite of what the employee is saying.
Exactly. But if that employee is operating from, say, a very defensive or maybe narcissistic place where they absolutely cannot tolerate feeling any sense of failure themselves, then the manager's induced feeling of failure or powerlessness is actually congruent with the employee's underlying defense. It's the polar opposite. The manager is feeling what the employee is desperately trying not to feel, what they're pushing away.
So the manager has been induced to hold the disowned part of the employee's experience.
Precisely. It's a huge insight for communication, isn't it? The real message might be hidden in the emotional opposite of the words.
That's massive. Okay, so what if there's just no match at all? The feeling seems totally disconnected from the content. That's incongruence.
That's incongruence. Your CT feeling has no apparent similarity, no logical analogy, not even an opposite connection to what's being discussed.
When would that happen?
Often, it's when the client's words sound perfectly fine, maybe even friendly or cooperative.
Yeah, sure, I'm totally on board with the plan.
Right. But their effective tone, the music behind the words, their emotional delivery is completely different. Maybe it's flat, maybe it feels vaguely threatening or just off, weirdly hostile even.
So the words say yes, but the emotional music says, I'm going to sabotage this.
Exactly that kind of dissonance. It's a puzzle. Incongruence often points towards really deep, maybe pre-verbal or nonverbal inductions, patterns laid down very early in life before things got put into neat stories.
So the expert feels this sense of danger or unease, but the conversation itself doesn't logically explain why. Not yet, anyway.
Not yet. It's a sign that something powerful but maybe not yet verbalized is happening in the dynamic.
Okay, now this feels like where the stakes get really high. What happens if the expert messes this up, misreads the map?
Yeah, this is critical. The sources are pretty clear that the biggest single roadblock to actually recognizing a genuine objective induction.
Like the feeling the client is putting onto you.
Right. The biggest obstacle is the expert jumping to a conclusion that the feeling has nothing to do with the client, making a premature subjective assumption.
Explain that. Give an example.
Okay, think about a mentor coaching a trainee. The mentor starts feeling profoundly bored during their sessions, just mind-numbingly bored.
We've all been there.
Right. Now, the easy conclusion is, ugh, I must be tired today. Or maybe worse, wow, this trainee is just really, really boring.
Yeah, sounds familiar.
But in making that assumption, the mentor might be totally rejecting an objective signal. They might be missing that the trainee is actually communicating profound depression or despair or a deep sense of hopelessness.
Those feelings are so hard to bear.
Exactly. So hard that the trainee unconsciously induces a kind of psychic numbness or boredom in the mentor as a way to manage it or defend against feeling it themselves.
So by dismissing the boredom as subjective, the mentor misses a huge piece of data about the trainee's real state.
A massive piece. And that's the danger. And when subjective countertransference, the SET, the expert's own stuff, really takes over.
Then the feelings are definitely about the expert's history.
Right. And this leads to two big problems. First, you get subjective misinterpretations of what might actually be objective signals. You see everything through your own lens.
Okay, Portia.
And second, and this is maybe even more critical, it often results in an inability to tolerate the objective inductions when they do happen.
What do you mean, inability to tolerate?
Well, say the client induces a feeling of intense abandonment in you, the expert. If you have your own unresolved abandonment issues, that's SET, you might panic. That feeling is just too painful for you to hold. So instead of just sitting with it and understanding it as data about the client, you might rush in to fix the client or reassure them excessively, basically doing anything to make your own painful feeling go away.
Ah, so your subjective stuff makes you unable to handle their objective stuff.
Exactly. And that inability to tolerate the feeling, that's what leads to what the sources call technical errors, or worse, enactments.
Enactments, that sounds dramatic.
It means acting out the drama instead of understanding it. Your subjective vulnerability makes you unconsciously participate in repeating the client's problematic pattern rather than helping them see it.
So what does an enactment look like in, say, a professional setting?
Oh, it could be many things. A manager who keeps forgetting important details, but only for one specific employee they find difficult.
Yeah.
Or a consultant who finds themselves consistently late, but only for meetings with a particular client who makes them feel inadequate. Or making emotional responses that clearly cross a professional boundary, getting overly angry or overly solicitous.
And these aren't necessarily conscious choices.
Often not conscious malice, no. It's the expert unconsciously acting out either their own unresolved issues, SET, or acting out the intense objective drama the client has induced in them, OCT, because they just can't bear to feel it without reacting.
So that inability to manage your own subjective responses basically contaminates the whole interaction.
It really can. You risk becoming rigid or defensive or even, frankly, toxic to the other person. And then you often end up blaming them when the relationship or the project goes south.
Which points to the safeguard then.
Yeah. Rigorous self-knowledge. Self-awareness.
Right.
Our sources hammer this home. The ability to actually feel those intense, induced emotions, the OCT, without immediately acting on them or getting overwhelmed by your own SCT, that's what gives you the freedom to function.
It's freedom to function. I love that.
If you can't tolerate the emotional signal, you lose your flexibility, you lose your judgment, and you can't really help.
Yeah.
Hashtag tag outro.
Wow. Okay, so this deep dive really gives us, and you listening, a pretty practical blueprint, actually, for self-monitoring, for navigating these tricky interactions. We've learned you have to map the emotional signal. Is it objective CT? Does it line up with the other person's history and patterns?
Right.
Or is it subjective CT? Does it resonate more strongly with your own past stuff?
You're on trigger.
And then congruence is the map itself. How does the feeling connect to what's happening right now, to the content, even if, and this is the mind bender, even if it's the emotional opposite of what's being said out loud?
Exactly. The goal isn't to somehow stop having these feelings. That's impossible and probably not even helpful. The goal is to use them as really valuable diagnostic tools.
That freedom to function you mentioned, being able to feel the heat without getting burned, essentially.
That's it. Feeling the full intensity, whether it's theirs or yours or ours, but keeping your judgment clear. It's transformative when you can do it.
So here's the challenge for everyone listening, especially if you regularly deal with complex communication or, let's be honest, difficult people. Next time you feel a really strong, maybe disproportionate emotional response, irritation, fear, sudden boredom, whatever, just pause for a second. Compare that feeling, not just to the words being spoken.
But to the effective tone, remember, the music behind the words.
Right. And compare it to what you know about that person's track record, their patterns. How can you apply this idea of congruence? Try to figure out whose emotional data are you actually carrying in that moment?
And just starting to ask that question, differentiating those signals, that really is the first huge step toward genuine clarity in our interactions.